Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Death From Above 1979 album, Outrage is now. Death From Above is a Canadian rock duo known for their fantastic and only album they dropped in the 2000s, You're a Woman, I'm a Machine. Shortly after which they kind of dropped off the map as a band to focus on separate musical endeavors, only to return with a sophomore album a decade later, The Physical World, in 2014. And going into this record, I could only think two things. One, it's been so long since Sebastian and Jesse wrote and performed together, there's gonna be some kinks to work out. And if these guys were just chock full of ideas, great ideas for another album, the follow-up would have come much sooner. And while The Physical World was by no means an awful album, it pretty much confirmed those assumptions. However, after this album, I was happy to hear that Jesse and Sebastian were going to be working on another album and continuing the band into the future. And as long as that continues to be the case, I feel like these guys have the potential to reach the next high point in their career. Which brings us to Outrage Is Now. And this is, in my opinion, this is the album. This is the record that I wish The Physical World was. This is the album that in spirit I think is truly the duo's comeback album. It's just unfortunate that there are less eyes and ears on what the duo are doing at this moment because the initial hype of them reforming is gone. But keep in mind, this is not another You're a Woman, I'm a Machine. Sebastian and Jesse do change things up stylistically a bit. Their sound is still relatively simple and heavy, mostly made up of driving drum beats, wailing, roaring bass riffs, and Sebastian's vocals. Occasionally, of course, some keyboards or pianos being worked into a track to give it more dynamics and body. But overall on this record, I would say that there's less of a direct, speedy, throttling punk influence as there was on their earlier work. And that's kind of been swapped out for like almost a hard rock influence, like from the late 70s to the mid to late 80s, and it's kind of a sound the duo pulls off very well. They fit it into their usual style and aesthetic pretty snugly to the point where it's not really a distracting change. Case in point, the song Never Swim Alone, which has this strutting staccato riff. It has so much swagger, so much color. This is one of many moments on this record where the riffs just sound larger, more arena-sized, the drum beats are funkier and groovier. A few tracks take a slightly more brooding approach too, like there are some very expressive, dramatic, moany lead vocals on the song Never Forever that kind of remind me of Marilyn Manson. The song Moonlight as well features these dark, lurking verses that kind of give way to a melodic chorus that the band reveals more and more of as the song progresses. Interesting way to structure the track, and has a very sharp climax at the finish. In a way, Death From Above is kind of bringing back the shameless attitude and confidence that rock music used to have in spades. Not a corner of this album feels unsure of itself. In fact, I'm pretty sure this record thinks it's the shit, and it's pretty convincing. From the thunderous fight riffs on the opening track NOMAD to the direct eye contact, I'm hitting on you dominance of the song All I See Is You and Me. And this thing is a tight 10 tracks, 36 minutes. There's not really a whole lot of room for frills or BS. And the duo manages to pack a lot of punch onto this record in a pretty short amount of time, with lots of infectious riffing and sticky choruses. To take it back to the song Nomad, which features one of the best choruses on the entire record, it also has a very smart turn of phrase on the hook too. The song is obviously about someone who is a nomad, always on the go, doesn't necessarily have a home. Tying the word nomad into the phrase no matter where you go, no matter what you do. It may seem like a dumb pun, but it works into the lyrical flow of the song really nicely. The song Freeze Me, whose uppity bass riffs and keyboards were kind of a turn-off to me when I first heard it, grew on me a bit. And I think it was mostly the sharp vocal melodies on the hook and some of the harmonies toward the finish of the track that really just kind of melted my heart. Also, I kind of like the lyrical theme of the song of being frozen by someone's stare who is your significant other or someone who you're interested in, or kind of being in this like weird relationship limbo period. The song has one of the more solid finishes of any track on the record too, and the title track is a kind of interesting change of pace for the lyrics as well. It's kind of a surprising socio-political statement about just the value and obsession over anger and outrage generally right now. I guess it's also kind of a statement on oversensitivity and just feeling alienated and feeling almost outside of it in a way where you're confused. And this I could kind of read into a couple of different ways. I mean, for sure there are going to be people people who hear this track and think, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. And that's totally fine. That's totally a fair point. I think maybe the biggest shortcoming of the track is just how general the statements of the song are. I mean, in the era of Trump, there's a lot to be outraged about. However, given that Jesse and Sebastian are adult human beings with eyes and ears and functioning brains, I would probably imagine that they're most likely reacting to, I don't know, outrage over stuff like manspreading or white people using reaction GIFs that have black people in them, which, yes, people are legitimately mad about that bullshit. Something tells me when they were writing this song, they didn't have the military-industrial complex or, you know, Republican political policy or, I don't know, Americans' general lack of healthcare in mind. I also enjoy the track sonically. It's kind of slow, sterile, somewhat synthetic, and kind of post-apocalyptic intro. The ominous bass riffs that kick off on the first pre-chorus that build up to a really powerful, heavy, just gargantuan hook. I also like Sebastian kind of recycling old rock cliched lyrics like, you know, scream and shout to kind of talk about, you know, the idea of outrage, or depicting it rather. I also like the weird warped chorus vocals on the song Statues. It's like I'm listening to the vocals or just the track itself melt before my ears as it kind of blasts into the hook. And the song Statues, I can't quite put my finger on it. Is it about people who are wallflowers or don't really take that many risks in life or don't go out and get what they want and let other people step or sort of get ahead of them? Talking about statues kind of being built to last, and they're obviously in good shape, but that's also because, you know, they don't weather any storms. There are also these like weird metallic sounds that pop up occasionally in the mix. It's like this little extra bit of sound play that kind of keeps this album from sounding too plain, too stripped back, too, I don't know, colorless. And the song Holy Books, I mean, as far as like the energy, the pace, the riffing, it's like everything I loved about the band's previous work, but it has a badass and a very well put together kind of piano break in the second half that's really beautiful. Gives the album almost like a nice, elegant finish. And as far as the lyrics go, I mean, it's kind of like a ass-kicking atheists anthem. Sebastian singing about how he don't go for no holy books because those ancient lines, they ain't got no hooks. Which I think is one of the sharpest lines on the entire record. I don't know, man. I was really impressed with this album. While it's definitely not the, you know, the shot of heroin and just the rush that the debut album was, I can appreciate the band is actually evolving on this album, trying new things, taking risks, getting a little bit more dynamic, still writing some very solid tunes, and actually like really starting to sound more like a well-oiled machine, rather than, you know, with the last record where they embarked on some kind of awkward experiments and rehashed a bunch of sounds and ideas from their earlier work that just kind of felt like a lesser comparison. This to me feels like a lot of the original spirit of Death from Above intact, but kind of embarking on a slightly different direction, approach, sound. And this actually kind of makes me excited and looking forward to where the duo is going from here, even if they don't manage to amass the same amount of hype and excitement over their future releases as they have in the past. I'm feeling a strong 7 to a light 8 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe. And please don't cry. Just leave an angry comment in the comments if you're angry. Death from Above. Outrage. There's a video next to my head of a review of the group's last album, the duo's last album. Or you can click on the link to subscribe to the channel. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next one. Forever.